This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map, Cabana Republic. Always glad to see Cabana Republic once again. Usually provides some good games, and we don't see it that often. It's one of the less played of the standard 7. On the left side, playing the Cyan allies, but drawing random and going airfield first. Give it up for GoDofWaR. Providing some pretty great games over the course of 2020, and hopefully now here in 2021. On the right side, as the Yellow Soviets, this is OBIEK. Alright, OBIEK versus GoDofWaR into a fast airfield just right out of the gate from GoDofWaR. And GoDofWaR, actually I guess the most recent game of his that I cast was that game versus Maniac on Infinity Isle, which was so entertaining to watch. Really glad that Maniac did play that match against him. And I believe in that one he was also playing random and playing Soviets. So GoDofWaR traditionally an allied player, and in this case drawing allies randomly, which, you know, it's a bit like when Demon or someone plays random and then gets Soviets out of it. It's like, well, he played random, sure. But really, you just got a massive advantage because you get the faction that you want, and your opponent doesn't know. Flak cannon going to be coming up, so no flak troopers on the high ground. There's always, right into Tier 2. This is actually a fast, not just a fast airfield, fast cryocopter into an MCV move. And goodbye one harvester, so this cryocopter hasn't paid for itself just yet, but it is getting darn close to it, especially when you count the lost mining time, the fact that the flak cannon money was spent, but it was just a little bit too slow, and so it did literally nothing there. Cryocopter, I assume it's going to head back for repairs. It's actually heading a little bit north, which, I don't know, might be going for this engineer? I assume that's what the Vindicator is for. At any rate, MCV moved to a relatively quick third expansion coming out for GoDofWaR. Vindicator pushed back by the Bullfrogs. Good control by OBIEK. Good control by GoDofWaR as well. Just skating right on the edge of that range there and just barely not going down. Anyways, I don't know. I was saying something about random or something else. I got completely sidetracked. At any rate, OBIEK going naval yard way down in the south. Kind of interesting. We'll have to see if anything actually comes out of that. Cryocopter still hasn't actually gotten any repairs, so it's flying around but at half health, which I feel like is a mistake at this point. It's been flying around for so long, it hasn't really been doing anything, and the threat is obviously very real. Oh, people always say that you should put flak troopers in a combat bunker on this ridge. And I think Demon did it once, and then someone said that, like, it's very common in some region. I don't remember where, and it's super good, but people still not doing it, so we'll have to see. I mean, OBIEK obviously doesn't think that it's worth it, otherwise he would do it. I don't think anyone does it consistently on the Revora server where we get most of the games from. Tier 2 on the MCV, of course, from the cryocopter earlier, but now it's going to be applied to the War Factory. So we're immediately into Tier 2 for GoDofWaR. Of course, he'll have to rebuild that airfield if he wants to actually produce any more cryocopters, but this game feels a little bit weird, a little bit off. Like, we had the really aggressive opening, the fast airfield coming out for GoDofWaR, but then after that, you know, it's a quick third refinery followed up by a war factory. That's $4,000 that you're spending in like 2 minutes on the clock, where you're not really doing anything. And so as a result, it's like this really weird pacing of a game. War factory just now coming down. This, I guess, is the second war factory because he produced all the bullfrogs out of the naval yard. And a sneaky stingray on the bottom, but that was just one stingray, and he was trying to hide it? I mean, one stingray, hey, it'll kill a harvester, it'll do some damage, but, I mean, it's not that crazy of something to hide along the southern edge of the map. So this game not turning out how a typical AVS on Cabana Republic would. I mean, sure, the opening seemed pretty normal. If he gets that bullfrog, that's going to be a lovely catch there by GoDofWaR, grabbing both of the oil derricks. A great move there by OBIEK. And wait a second, was that? That is a Mirage tank. So we're up to Tier 3. We've gone all the way for GoDofWaR. He's got the artillery advantage, at least potentially. And he's got the cryocopter, so we'll have to see if OBIEK is actually ready to deal with this. His own airfield is only just now starting. I mean, delaying the war factory by quite a ways, and then the naval yard is still around, but he's not really using it for anything. I don't know, this game feels so weird from OBIEK. I'm not sure exactly what his grand plan was going into that. Guardian tank does get grabbed by that terror drone. A nice catch by OBIEK, and not a whole lot for GoDofWaR to do here. He does get locked down just a moment there by that terror drone. The IFV and the Mirage tank trying to join forces to deal with that, and eventually Mirage tank does go down there. No, actually it turned into a tree. I thought maybe the terror drone got a second effect on it, but the multi-gunner IFV goes down. And this is actually not turning out well for... Oh, he gets one twin blade out before the airfield goes down. And at this point, the cryocopter, the Vindicator, and the Mirage tanks have the potential to do a lot of damage, but he has literally nothing to stop the twin blade. So eventually, this will come down to bite him, and eventually the twin blade will kill this stuff off. But how much damage can 2 or 3 Mirage tanks do before Twin Blade actually kills them off? Nice micro coming in here from GoDofWaR. Bullfrogs kill off the Apollo before it can actually get the kill on the Twin Blade. The Twin Blade surviving an engagement with an Apollo in that situation. Absolutely amazing. And the Terror Drone gets the infect on the second Mirage tank, which means this final Mirage tank is the only standing army for GoDofWaR. GoDofWaR sends another Apollo to its doom, to its demise, as the Bullfrogs covering for this Twin Blade for the second time. A double vet Twin Blade. And this attack, which seemed like a solid move by GoDofWaR, if you write down on paper what both players have, it seemed like it made sense, but the execution was just not there. It was like 10% too slow, or 10% not enough firepower from GoDofWaR to be able to effectively do anything in the amount of time that he had. And as a result, one Twin Blade and a couple of Bullfrogs pulled out the defense for OBIEK. Again, not something you see very often. A couple of key Terror Drone infects as well, turning the tide for that battle. Still not claiming an oil derrick is GoDofWaR. Maybe he grabbed them at one point and I just missed it, but not for any length of time has he had control of those oil derricks, and I think not at all. Couple of MiGs, couple of Bullfrogs, but really the only thing that shoots the ground, I was going to say shoots down, but I guess Bullfrogs don't really need to shoot down per se, is the Twin Blade. He's got the Twin Blade, and that's pretty much it. None of these units really getting salvaged by GoDofWaR. He really needs to figure something out to deal with these Terror Drones one way or the other. Terror Drone, fortunately for GoDofWaR, did not grab the Prospector, so the expansion point will be established by GoDofWaR, and the Cryocopter Mirage tank combo is enough firepower to finally deal with that Terror Drone. MiGs come in, but they do contend with the Apollo and the IFV, losing both MiGs for virtually nothing there. A little bit of hit points off of the Cryocopter, and now the Bullfrogs running right past the Mirage tank, but it actually turns out to be okay. The Apollos need to chase away the MiGs, and a Cryocopter gets eliminated, as it's going to be in a command hub versus an MCV in the north for the water expansion dominance. Vindicator going down, and I think an Apollo as well. 2 MiGs still reigning supreme for OBIEK, and out on the water, well, again, he doesn't have a whole lot of stuff that shoots the ground or the water, but he does have one Akula sub. And I think the Twin Blade was actually the thing that went down earlier alongside that Vindicator that I did miss just a moment ago. Bullfrogs getting dangerously close to those Mirage tanks, but they will pass each other. Nicely done there by OBIEK, avoiding detection at least for the moment. Ooh, a little bit of a whiff there. He was kind of turning as he was using that special ability, and this is a drafted refinery that I don't think is going to pay for itself. Tesla Coil also going to be coming up by OBIEK, And GoDofWaR, he's on that 3K, or he's on that 3 refineries, but he hasn't been able to keep very many of his units alive, losing Apollos, losing Vindicators and Cryocopters, and 2 more Apollos going down, although it looks like the MiGs are going to go down in equal numbers. Nope, the second one does manage to escape, but still 1 more MiG going down. The Twin Blades showing up. They're going to be able to overwhelm this IFV, but the IFV gets damage on 1 of the Twin Blades. The second IFV rather does show up, and a third IFV even here, which is enough to push back the Twin Blades. A third Twin Blade showing up just at the nick of time to run away with his friends. And a multi-gunner turret, a curious choice. I guess if he got the Harvester, then the multi-gunner turret is actually worth it. And it looks like he did get the Harvester, delaying the economy of OBIEK by that much, forcing him to rebuild that Harvester as well. Which I guess those things do add up, because the multi-gunner turret costs less than the Harvester, plus the lost mining time. So in that case, OBIEK did come out behind in that case. So he's got the 4 refineries, but at any one time, not 4 refineries are actually working. GoDofWaR killing another Harvester here, it looks like a minute ago. And it's really just IFVs after the Mirage tanks have not worked out for GoDofWaR. He's been trying to make the IFVs work, and because of how wonky and weird the army of OBIEK is, how unusual this composition from OBIEK is, the IFVs are actually working out pretty well. They do well against the Twin Blades, the MiGs, and the Bullfrogs, of course. You know, Bullfrogs not being able to return fire, so of course they're going to do fantastically against that. Killing off that oil derrick down there would definitely be a nice move. I mean, you gotta hamper OBIEK in every possible way that you can, but you gotta do something to cut down the refineries as well. The number of refineries from OBIEK is going to be reaching 5 very soon, and 5 Soviet refineries versus 3 Allied refineries is going to be difficult, as a IFV runs into the Cryoblast and gets eliminated. The Twin Blade's able to pick off the Mirage tank, 1 Twin Blade going down, and that is a trade that OBIEK will take. The other 4 Twin Blades do manage to escape, although they're so heavily damaged without a Crusher Crane, they're almost useless in another engagement. They won't last very long against those IFVs at all, which means actually that engagement in like total life lost might have actually worked out in favor of GoDofWaR. Killing off the airfield is certainly great. It opens up another opportunity for him to potentially get in here. Twin Blades and Terror Drones going to be coming in here. There's the Mirage tank gone and gone, but 2 Twin Blades do go down for it, and 2 IFVs as well. This is a real problem for GoDofWaR. Once again, the IFVs, or the Terror Drones, causing absolute mayhem for GoDofWaR. And again, these attacks, were they 10% more effective, would have won GoDofWaR the game minutes ago. But in this case, he's just barely holding on. He cleans up both of the Bullfrogs, but he's going to end up potentially losing the Mirage tank to the Twin Blade. No, the Twin Blade does barely go down to the Apollo. But again, the army of both players is so incredibly small, broken apart, and disorganized. I mean, 2 IFVs, a MiG, or an Apollo, and a Mirage tank that's almost dead, and we're like 13 minutes into a game on Cabana Republic. How often do you see not just hammer tanks versus Guardian tanks and Athena cannons basically tussling right outside of somebody's main base somewhere in this area, and yet here on Cabana Republic, it's like 1 dead Mirage tank fighting against Terror Drones, and somehow a Tesla Coil is actually going to finish. OBIEK managing to get a Tesla Coil out, and he's definitely going to get a couple of wins. He's going to get a little bit of a win there against the army of GoDofWaR, and unfortunately, I hit the wrong key, and the recording glitched out a little bit there. 2 IFVs and a Mirage tank going down, but once again, OBIEK's economy disrupted, and if OBIEK could ever get his economy online all the way for a consistent amount of time, he would actually be able to put out an army that would crush GoDofWaR. But GoDofWaR himself, not with a very strong army ever on the map, has been doing such a good job of limiting OBIEK at every turn that OBIEK also cannot develop any kind of a strong, scary army. And at this point, aircraft carriers, technically GoDofWaR has had the artillery advantage for a long, long time, but this is the first time we're really seeing it be utilized here as he's finally assaulting this expansion from a distance. But where are the Apollos? Where are the hydrofoils to try and deal with these Twin Blades to save this aircraft carrier? I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the aircraft carrier gets Terror Droned and eliminated between a Terror Drone and a Twin Blade. And that's the entirety of God of War's army, like getting eliminated by 2 lower cost units there. Even a couple of bullfrogs directly outside of this aircraft carrier's range, just taking down the drones and forcing the drones away. I love that one of them is fully heroic. Keeping them moving is a good move there by OBIEK. I love the single Mirage tank split off from the rest of the attention of OBIEK, but it looks like OBIEK has seen it. Killing off that oil derrick did alert OBIEK to it. And oh, a real miss there for OBIEK, not killing off this Mirage tank. A second terror drone may be able to deal with the Mirage tank, but not before it kills off the ore collector. Getting the refinery would be great, but the ore collector is as good as God of War can get. Vindicator is going to be getting pulled back from the front line, and another Mirage tank in the middle of the map going to be eliminated by those twin blades. Goodbye to... No, that's actually an IFV, not a Mirage tank, coming up for the follow-up. The aircraft carrier is still alive. A couple of hydrofoils out on the map. Assault destroyers also trying to deal with the Akula subs. You gotta mix and match what you possibly can, because when you're God of War in this situation, every unit matters. And I feel like God of War is starting to make a little bit of progress in the north, but letting his hydrofoils take the brunt of the damage from the Akula subs without returning fire with the assault destroyers is a bit of a critical mistake there. And we'll have to see if the twin blades, which actually the twin blades are way far down south, so actually that assault destroyer and aircraft carrier combo may actually be all right. There's the Vindicators into the sky. They do clean up the fully heroic bullfrog, and the Harvester is going to pay the price for it. One bullfrog does still remain, and the twin blades still in the sky. One of them going fully heroic, unable to be stopped by anything that God of War has on the ground or in the sky. Assault destroyer getting eliminated by a terror drone as the Akula subs pick off the aircraft carrier, and literally neither one of these players with enough of an army to contend with the other one consistently. Aircraft carrier or assault destroyer going to be getting eliminated by an Akula sub as the aircraft carrier sinks to Davy Jones' locker. Harvesters getting eliminated on both sides, and it looks like Toxin's going to be getting dropped onto this Prospector, which should be enough to finish it off, maybe in the next load of ore. And goodbye, Harvester. So that's 2 Harvesters down, one of them through a support power. And once again, OBIEK, who in theory should have the better economy, is finding himself a little bit further ahead, having eliminated 2 of the 3 working Harvesters of God of War. But God of War has been doing more economic damage to OBIEK over the course of this game. This game turning so weird over the in the choices that each player is making, and in the fact that it's been a big, expansive game, but the armies have been anything but that. One Apollo chasing 2 MiGs, and the MiGs don't turn and fight. The Bullfrog is trying to save the MiGs, but they both go down, and somehow the Apollo actually survives. Fully heroic, it starts healing itself up, running away from that Bullfrog. An Athena cannon out on the map. A second one making its way into the middle of the map, but a couple of terror drones might be the thing that eliminate these Athena cannons. One IFV extremely low on health, so if there are some terror drones, or if there are some twin blades, they could potentially deal with this. 4-5 hammer tanks out on the field. Finally, we're seeing good hammer tank numbers, as I think the total is actually 6. Now that they're all joining together, and 6 hammer tanks can close the distance on this small army from God of War. But once again, if he closes the distance on the army, does OBIEK have enough to clean up the rest? I think it's satellites that took out this airfield. As a good move by OBIEK, able to clean up the airfield. Aegis Shield is going to be the use to try and delay this army. 2 Mirage tanks showing up, so suddenly these hammer tanks are not nearly enough to stop this army in its tracks. And actually 1 hammer tank being gifted away at the end there. 3 of them retreating, full on health, but without much of a chance of stopping Mirage tanks and Athena cannons with IFVs mixed in to hold off the twin blades. Although 1 Mirage tank being transported unguarded gets eliminated. Unfortunate for God of War. Finally, some of these buildings in the middle of the map getting cleared out. Those conscripts won't last forever. And it looks like OBIEK is dominating the water, but God of War may soon control the land. IFV's not in a great position, but the Aegis Shield will protect absolutely everything. One Twin Blade, low on health, but not actually eliminated. And the multi-gunner IFVs, if they get caught out by the Twin Blades, they will get 1v1'd by the Twin Blades. They're so low on health. The Apollo finally showing up. It's fully heroic, so it can do a lot of damage, but not out over the water, where the threat of bullfrogs is a little bit more. Once again, 6 hammer tanks all in good formation as an Athena cannon takes shots at this ore refinery in the main base of OBIEK. The Aegis Shield pops, and there's 1 Mirage tank and 3 IFVs, but is that actually going to be enough? Finally, the hammer tanks close the distance. They clean up all of the IFVs. 1 manages to escape to the north, but the Athena cannon doing some good damage will be protected by this Mirage tank from the hammer, and goodbye 1 refinery. GoDofWaR trying to control the land, and it looks like he may finally be able to do it. The super reactor, which has stood for so long in this game, will have to be rebuilt out on the water. There it begins, and you might as well let that one stand if you want to buy time. The Twin Blades swoop in. The Aegis Shield is not enough, but the Apollo will potentially close the distance. No, it's going to contend with the MiGs behind it, and the Apollo is out of ammo. The MiGs get the kill, and the Mirage tank won't even finish off the super reactor. Buying time, not the early sell-off, was the right move to make. And I mean, technically, yeah, he actually cancels his own super reactor back out on the water. He's still got build radius. That power plant gives him a nice early spot, and a couple of hammer tanks, 3 at least, maybe even a 4th one going to be going down as that Mirage tank tries to close the distance, and it gets some good damage as the toxins drop on that last prospector in the main base of GoDofWaR. His refinery is being eliminated. This Mirage tank will 1v1 the hammer tank, no problem. But GoDofWaR has lost so much in terms of army, so much in terms of infrastructure. Can he contend with OBIEK? OBIEK now going to be giving away MiGs. Once again, it's a story of gifting. This is a Christmas miracle these players are giving us. This is a game of gifting. Both ways, in all directions. Some of them are clumsy mistakes, some of them are good moves, and some of them are a little bit unavoidable. I'm not actually sure where the Akula subs ended up. I guess there isn't much for them to do around the map, but I don't know what their fate ended up being. Refinery's still not back online, so it's 3 refineries, 4 OBIEK. 1 refinery, 2 working refineries for GoDofWaR. Potentially a 3rd refinery going to be popping up relatively soon. 3 terror drones locking down 2 Mirage tanks. I guess that harvester will manage to escape for now. The super reactor still stands. And OBIEK rebuilding himself, reinventing himself out on the water. He's got the crusher crane here. He's been providing those repairs. Terror drones once again locking down those Mirage tanks, and satellites going to be getting called down, but unfortunately, in possibly the worst spot, not even the units getting locked down by the terror drones will be affected. That's just an unfortunate kind of waste of the satellites there. Tesla coil, great position. A 2nd Tesla coil going to be coming up, and a reactor just to body block, just to absorb a little bit of damage there. And yeah, I guess turn south and clean up the rest of the main base. You'll at least get the super reactor, even though that's really of no consequence at this point. Although there's enough base defenses and buildings that it's possible he needs 2 super reactors. If you kill the super reactor and the reactor, it might put him a little bit behind. Back up, buddy. Whew, okay, GoDofWaR not going to be losing anything there. Does take a lot of damage on a Mirage tank. It goes fully heroic, though, and this airfield just being rebuilt. These terror drones not actually jumping inside of these harvesters. They might want to do that once the airfield goes down. 1 Apollo steps on out. Where are the MiGs to deal with it? There's 1 MiG right here, but the Apollo is, of course, getting repairs. Barely it beats out the MiG, and 3 minutes on the clock for the Iron Curtain. This Apollo could not have spawned at a better time. These Twin Blades cutting and running to try and get on out of here. Oh my gosh, the Twin Blades in the worst possible move, and yet the Apollo runs out of ammo moments before it would eventually crush them. Dreadnought out on the water, taking down the 3rd base from GoDofWaR, but GoDofWaR loses the Mirage tank to the Tesla coil. Everything going wrong for both players, but the Dreadnought might be the thing that seals the deal for OBIEK to win the game. Terror drones trying to lock down these harvesters. GoDofWaR has fought the good fight. He is held out for a long time, but he has not been able to muster much of anything. And a Dreadnought is going to be a tough thing to deal with. Yeah, if he was Soviets, he could have used just a single Terror drone to knock that Dreadnought back to main base, or at least kill it off eventually. But in this case, he's got literally nothing to deal with it, and really no functional way. Actually, he does have a Cryogeddon. He just used it back here, so if he could waste enough time to get the Cryogeddon back online and then get something out there to, wait until the Dreadnought is close to land, Cryogeddon it, and then shoot it with a Peacekeeper, which is almost what he's going to try and do. GG gets, and GoDofWaR taps out of that game. A slugfest on Cabana Republic for sure between these two guys, and a Soviet versus allies that goes in almost every corner of the map. Many of the units being seen. Even technically, we got a Stingray. All that time ago, back at the beginning of the game, we did get a Stingray in this match, but it was not of any consequence. And GoDofWaR tapping out. The Athena cannons couldn't save him. The aircraft carrier couldn't save him. And in the end, OBIEK is victorious in the Christmas game of early 2021. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you all very much for watching, and this is Sybert, signing out.